let's talk a little bit about LiDAR. LiDAR is not relating to a polygraph machine in this case. It's referring to something akin to radar, but radar using lasers.
Right. These are the lasers that the self-driving car sort of sends out to get its picture of the world. And Google, did some work to figure out its own way to sort of sense where everything was and position, the tree, the dog running across the street, all that, so that they would have an advantage over other self-driving car makers.
And lots of companies are using LiDAR, trying to use LiDAR. We're going to have a company later in the show that's using LiDAR in their, at least, I don't know if you're going to call it autonomous, but at least easier to drive car with all sorts of tools in it. But these were really particular designs that the company is trying to really own over all the competitors in space.
Right. I mean, they're trade secrets. This is how they're supposed to have an edge, get a self-driving car out before Uber and sort of figure out a way to turn this into a business. I am not a LiDAR expert, but I think it's like, to the degree of, do we have two mirrors or one? Where is it positioned to get the most information efficiently? And then also there's just the matter of price. And we haven't talked about the supply chain part of this. You have to acquire all the pieces that you use to manufacture this, and just figuring out what the proper supply chain is to build the LiDAR is an advantage over another company that have to spend months figuring out the supplier network.
Well, and it's also interesting to me that you've got all these companies. I was born in Michigan, and when I was a little kid, cars were everything everywhere, even though it wasn't my family's business, but everybody else was in that business.
Right.
And there were all these little companies, and there was room to start up little companies to create the windshield wiper, to create the light that's on the mirror when you flip down the visor and the light comes on. That was a different company, right? Now you've got not just Google and Uber and Tesla, but you've got Delphi, you've got Ford, you've got GM, and they're all hiring in Silicon Valley. They're all going after the same talent.
Right. It's hard for a small self-driving car company to stay independent for long. I mean, I think what's interesting here, we don't really think of Uber as a small startup anymore, but I think if this were a traditional patent case, people would be sort of much more disturbed that Google was going after Uber for trying to make moves. But I think what's crazy here is that it's a true trade secret case. It's an employee stealing what Google alleges are trade secrets.
And yet, doesn't Google have an investment in Uber, as I recall?
Right, one of the biggest investors.
So one of the biggest owners of Uber stock is suing Uber for stealing its trade secrets. And furthermore, Uber uses Google Maps, or has traditionally used Google Maps. I don't know what the involvement is there still.
Right. Uber is still pretty reliant on Google's Maps, though trying to move away from them. I mean, sort of a frenemies turned into pure enemies situation at this point.